Let's talk crime and punishment. It is the WMAY morning news feed. I'm Greg Bishop at 7:12 as the sun starts to come up a bit. I'm looking out the window here. It kind of does look like it's got a little bit of that pink hue as it comes up. Beautiful. But of course, a lot of people not having good restful sleep in some areas of the state as crime continues to ravage communities, including up in Chicago. You've got not just the incredible number of murders that happened last year, including a staggering number of children who were killed with crossfire and gangs going back and forth. But you also have carjackings that are a significant problem, not just in Chicago, but in some of the suburban areas. And even here in Springfield, we've had some gun violence. Decatur having gun violence. Peoria having gun violence as well. But how exactly the state lawmakers are going to approach this is yet to be clear. But obviously, there's some lines being drawn in the sand as to what Democrats are looking for and what Republicans are looking for. So you've got crime rates across the state, a significant issue, and some people, again, not really having a feeling of safety in their own communities. And you've got the state legislature that's looking at possibly taking up other issues when it comes to criminal justice reforms or even when it comes to issues of police regulation. Now, the Illinois Republicans in the Illinois House, who are in the super minority, all right, so they don't really have much power, but they can call news conferences, that of which they did, and they're demanding that the Democrats' Safety Act be repealed. Now, the measure, it eliminates cash bail within 2 years. It makes it easier to decertify police officers by eliminating signed affidavits of complaints, meaning people can issue complaints anonymously against police officers, and those complaints could lead to hearings leading to decertification of police. It also mandates the use of body cameras for all officers by 2025 and a whole host of other things. I mean, this was a large, expansive bill that state lawmakers, the Democratic supermajority, passed in early January last year, when the 101st General Assembly was getting ready to finish up, because the General Assembly is only 2 years long. So they were finishing up the previous General Assembly at the beginning of 2021. In the final hours of that, they literally, in the final hours, like overnight, in the wee hours of the morning, they ultimately passed the Safety Act. And a lot of law enforcement groups were concerned. They said that the definitions of a lot of terms were not correct and led to a whole host of issues to where lawmakers actually had to come back with several what are called trailer bills. And those are bills that are meant to clean up expansive legislation to help redefine terms or to make things more clear. So they ultimately passed those in this General Assembly that started January of 2021. So all throughout last year, different ideas popped up, different collaboration, law enforcement working closer with the sponsors saying we need clarification, we need better definitions, and a variety of other things. So they've had to do some cleanup legislation on that. But that the legislation being blamed for increased crime by Republicans. But there's a little bit more to all of this. So you've got different sentiments when it comes to how to address crime and punishment. And I wanted to share with you kind of across the spectrum here of what we're hearing when it comes to how lawmakers are going to deal with this. And we'll start with not yesterday's news conference from minority Republicans. We'll start with a hearing that happened earlier this week in the House Judiciary Criminal Committee. So this is a committee that deals with a lot of crime issues, and it's led by Democratic State Representative Justin Slaughter. And he shared with the committee some of the questions that could be coming up, dealing with a variety of issues on penalty enhancements, maybe, or dealing with police reforms and a variety of things. So here's Justin Slaughter earlier this week talking about what the committee is going to be looking at. And in particular, not just what they're going to be looking at, but the pace of which they're going to be reviewing proposals. Then that'll be followed up by House Minority Leader Jim Durkin yesterday responding, and State Representative Ryan Spain talking about the importance that Republicans say is the repeal of the Safety Act. So here are some of the back and forth between lawmakers at the state capitol in how they're going to approach crime in the state of Illinois, and in particular when it comes to the rate, the pace of which they're going to address these things. So here's State Representative Justin Slaughter.
We know there's an uptick in crime and violence. This is what we know. Special attention will be given to crime and violence. And really, just to give the committee a heads up, yes, crime and violence is a criminal justice matter. We know that that is a big part of it. What we also know is that there are a myriad of different factors that go into crime and violence. We plan to slow down to speed up. We plan to slow down to speed up.
And we're here to
So that's again the state representative in charge of the Judiciary Criminal Committee talking about the pace of which they're going to go about addressing some of these things. They're going to slow down to speed up, Justin Slaughter said. So I asked State Representative House Minority Leader Jim Durkin to respond to that, especially as Republicans were saying, listen, crime's an issue. And even Democrats, as you heard Justin Slaughter say, crime's an issue. But how are they going to go about addressing this and at what pace? And again, Justin Slaughter saying they're going to slow down to speed up and saying that they're going to hear from experts. They're going to hold subject matter hearings and so on. But House Minority Leader Jim Durkin not too pleased with the characterization of the pace that Democrats laid out there.
We're here to be able to help, to provide guidance and also good ideas. But the fact is there's been no outreach between the Democrats and the Republicans, not only on criminal justice, but on anything else in the state legislature. So as Speaker Welch talked about a new day last January, there's nothing new about what they're doing. It's more of the same. But I believe that I know that they are afraid to admit that they've made a mistake. So they're going to go down this process and say that we're making minor changes and a couple tweaks here and there. But the fact is this thing is wrong. It's dead wrong. And it's going to set back public safety for decades if we don't get this fixed this year.
Crime has skyrocketed. Carjackings are taking place at an out of control rate. Retail theft is up. Violent crime has risen. Murders in the city of Chicago have reached over 800 murders in 2021. In my community, my hometown of Peoria, we had 34 homicides.
So the Legislative Black Caucus, they sent out a statement responding to the Republicans' news conference, and some of what they had to say was that a lot of the provisions in the Democrats' Safety Act have not even gone into effect yet. And they say that that proves Republicans are just playing a gambit for show. And they said that the news conference is another instance of the Illinois GOP chasing relevancy. Is that the best approach to have collaboration? Is to, say that they're just chasing relevancy when they've got concerns, just as constituents in these districts where Democrats are elected have concerns as well. Now, you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker being asked about this yesterday, and he seemed to echo a bit of what the Legislative Black Caucus said was, these measures haven't been implemented fully yet, and the governor also went further to talk about funding violence prevention programs and how the previous administration, he kept referring to the Rauner administration from 2018 that they defunded some of these programs, and that led to a spike of crime. But Republicans, they challenge that and say that this is obviously an increase in crime because of the atmosphere that's being created by seeing in the future these measures with more lax criminal justice provisions seeming to give a level of confidence to bad actors. So how is this going to be addressed at the Illinois State House? Yet to be clear. The House is scheduled back into session next week. Not sure if they're actually going to be in session next week because, of course, they canceled this week's session and the week before that as well. The Senate is not scheduled in. That was not on their calendar next week, but the House is. Still possible, though. They could cancel. They could put out a note today saying that they're not going to come back next week. We shall see. But I imagine you're going to hear a lot more about these issues. There is a House committee hearing today. It's a task force of sorts. And the task force, let me pull up the actual language here. It is the House Public Safety and Violence Prevention Task Force. And the subject matter today is law enforcement. So that's going to be a virtual House hearing coming up at 11 o'clock today. So we'll try to bring you some of the highlights for that on Monday. It's right here on the WMAY morning news feed.